Hello everyone. Before beginning this presentation, I'll walk you through a small story. Suppose your friend asks you for $5,000 and promises you to give that money within 3 months. Now after 3 months of continuous calling and asking him to give the money back, he refuses you to give that money. Now consider the similar kind of situation faced by all the credit card companies and the banks across the United States. And now the amount of money is not $5,000 here, it's billions and trillions of dollars in losses that the US banks and credit card companies has to face each and every year. So with the advent of data analytics tools and techniques, we can handle this complex issue using statistical methods. I am Piyush Gupta. I, along with my teammates Samir Nigam and Tejbir Chhabra, are going to tackle this complex issue using data science and analytics. Now, before beginning, I'll walk you through the entire agenda of the presentation today. We'll start off with the introduction and the primary objective, that what we are going to achieve with this project, some of the key benefits and the people who are benefited by this, by the analysis, our data collection and preparation phase, how we built the model and what was our process flow, and the assessment of the models, and finally the conclusion of which model that we selected and what results we observed. So as I said earlier, the loan defaults is one of the biggest problem that the entire United States economy is facing. According to the Federal Reserve Bank, for the past 5 years, the percentage of loan defaults is around 3 to 5%. And the dollar So let's begin. As I said earlier, loan default is one of the biggest problems being faced by the entire US economy. According to the Federal Reserve Bank, for the past 5 years, the percentage rate of the loan default is around 3 to 5%. And if I talk about the money in losses, it's around $1.29 trillion on an average every year. That's a huge amount. So the banks and the credit card companies need a protective measure to assess the potential risk associated with giving the loan to a potential loan applicant. It is very important for the banks to know who is going to default in advance to reduce the risk and the losses they face every year. Now let me walk you through our primary objective of this project. So we are trying to segment the new loan applicants on the basis of the risky and non-risky customers. Our secondary objective is to predict the annual percentage rate of new loan applicants on the basis of their current situation and various demographics such as their annual income, purpose of the loan, and the term of loan. Some of the key benefits of this project are the credit card companies and the banks. They can know in advance which customers are going to default on their loan, so they can assess their risk and decide according to the model that we will create whether to lend any money to the borrower or not. Apart from that, for the customers, if they know their APR in advance, they can decide whether they can afford that annual percentage rate and whether to decide they should take the loan or not. So this is our data. So we took the lending club data, which is one of the biggest peer-to-peer lending company in the United States that provides personal loan for home, car, and various reasons. Now the timeline of our data is 2007 January to December 2013. We'll talk about our predictor variables, which includes home ownership, the loan amount, the employment status of the applicant, the term of loan, and the number of inquiry on the loan applicant in the past 6 months. Now these are our target variables: the loan annual percentage rate, which is APR, and the loan charge off. Now this is the business model of Lending Club. Now Lending Club, they take the money from various investors all across the United States and lend the money to various borrowers and receive the monthly installment on the basis of their APR and give the money back to the various investors. So this is called as peer-to-peer lending, and this is how Lending Club works. This is the process flow that we followed. We extracted the Lending Club data during the timeline of January 2007 to December 2013. It was a CSV file. We used that CSV file in Python for the descriptive analytics of the data, and we performed the imputation and modeling in R. So this is how we prepared our data. So our data was never perfect. There were various variables which has a lot of skewness and outliers. Some of the variables that includes, I would say, require transformation was revolving balance and annual income. We also analyzed the various variables and removed the influential observations to make the prediction better. There were few missing values in some of the variables, so we used the predictive mean matching approach for missing value imputation of our variables. After the data preparation, it was time for us to reduce the number of variables. Initially we had 111 variables, so we used some of the domain knowledge and the principal component analysis method to reduce the variables to a shorter number. Apart from that, we created some of the dummy variables to increase the explainability of our models. Now my friend Tejbir is going to brief you further about the modeling techniques and the modeling process.
Thanks, Piyush. Hello, I'm Tejbir, and today I'm going to discuss about the distribution of borrowers by state, which will be followed by the model selection, which will be further followed by logistic regression model, its interpretation, its assessment, and then I'll finally conclude with a decision tree. So in this map, the darker color represents higher share of borrowers in that particular state, and we can see that here the highest share of borrowers is in California, which is followed by New York, which is further followed by Texas and Florida. It can also be seen that the share of borrowers is higher in the western coast, the eastern coast, and some states in the southern region, whereas it is comparatively lower in the midwestern region. So the Lending Club can specifically focus on these regions to increase their revenue. This map was built using the ggplot in the RStudio. Going with the model selection, we use 4 different modeling techniques to build the model based on the target variables. So there are 2 target variables. One is the annual percentage rate, which is the continuous variable, whereas the second one is the charge of status, which is a binary variable. For the continuous variable, that is the APR, we first build a regression model, regression tree to find out the factors which influence the annual percentage rate, and then we included those factors in the linear regression model to find out the equation to explain the variances in the model. Similarly, we built a classification decision tree model to find out the factors which influence the chances of which influence the chances of charge off, and then we included those factors in the logistic regression model. We specifically built logistic regression model because it is the best model for binary target variable, and we can easily explain the factors which influence the charge off using the logistic regression model's odd ratio. And along with that, logistic regression model is also robust to the failure of assumptions. Going to the logistic regression model, here the target variable is the loan charge-off, which is a binary variable indicating if a borrower charge off of the loan or not. The predictor variables are home ownership, loan amount, employment length, annual income, income verification status, debt to income ratio, purpose of loan, loan term, number of inquiries by the customer in 6 months. So the model looks like this, which is somewhat complicated. It looks somewhat complicated even when running the stepwise regression model. All of these variables which are included in the model are not significant, but these are important in the model as it was included in the stepwise regression as well. All of these variables are not that important, so I'm going to explain most important findings from this logistic regression model. So holding other variables constant, if the loan term is 60 months, the chances of borrower to charge off is 1.72 times of the loan term of 36 months. So which also makes sense in the real world. Going to the second finding, as the inquiries in the last 6 months by the customer increases by 1 unit, the chances of charge off also increases by 1.16 unit, which also makes sense in real world because we know that borrowers who are in desperate need of money may be going through a financial crisis and may not be able to pay off their loans later. Going to the next finding, which is holding other variables constant, if the borrower has 10 plus years of employment, 10 plus years of employment length, then they have 0.87 times chances of charging off the loan in comparison to borrowers who have employment length of less than 1 year, which is also true because borrowers who have been employed for 10 years will be definitely more financially stable in comparison to borrowers who are employed for less than 1 year. Going ahead with the next finding, as the revolving utilization increases by 1 unit, the chances of charging off the loan increases by 1.66 units. So which is also true. If a person is utilizing more from their revolving balance, that is their available credit, so they may not be able to pay off their loans in time. Then there are also the purposes, like a borrower taking loan for debt consolidation have 1.27 times higher chances of charging off in comparison to borrowers taking loan for the car. And then similarly it is 1.37 times higher for home improvement, 1.0 times higher for medical purposes, 2.74 times higher for renewable energy in comparison to cars. So I don't know why a person need to take a loan for renewable energy, and even it doesn't make sense for me, but it came out to be significant in the model. Coming to the model assessment, here the chi-square goodness of fit statistics, if the p-value of chi-square goodness of fit statistics is less than 0.05, then we can consider that the model is better in explaining the variances in comparison to the intercept only model. So in our case, the p-value was found to be less than 0.05, and we can say that our model is better in comparison to the intercept only model. Coming to the misclassification rate, the misclassification rate was found to be 14.23%, which is considerably good, and the accuracy can also be calculated from the misclassification rate, which comes out to be 85.77%, which is also good. And from this we can say that the predictive power of our model is really good. It's excellent actually. Going to the ROC curve. ROC curve is a measure of parameter in distinguishing between groups. So in this case it is borrowers who will charge off versus borrowers who will not charge off. And The area under the curve for the smoothed ROC was found to be 0.9107, which is slightly higher than the unsmoothed ROC, but any value greater than 0.90 is considered to be excellent. So which also states that the predictive power of this logistic regression model is good. Coming to the decision tree, here the target variable is the annual percentage rate, and here the green color indicates higher interest rate, that is the APR, annual percentage rate, and red color indicates lower APR. So the mean APR is found to be 14%, and the that is the most important variable. The first split is for the variable loan term. So if the loan term is 36 months, the average predicted APR is 13%, whereas the average predicted APR for the loan term of 60 months is found to be 17%. Similarly, for borrowers who took loan for 36 months and had revolving utilization of less than 46%, their APR is found to be 11%, whereas for borrowers who took loan for 36 months and had revolving utilization of more than or equal to 46%, their APR was found to be 14%. Coming to the term of 60 months, for borrowers who borrowed who took loan for 60 months and the revolving utilization was less than 50%, their APR was found to be 15%, whereas the borrowers who took loan for 60 months and had revolving utilization of more than 50%, their interest rate or the APR was found to be 18%. So the misclassification, the R square for this model was found to be 54%, and which is also considerably good. Now my friend Samir Nigam is going to explain you more about this project.
Hi everyone, I'm Samir Nigam, and I'm here to explain you all about linear regression model which was used in our analysis. So linear regression model uses ordinary least square estimation method to predict the value of target variable. For this model, our target variable was int rate, which is a continuous variable, and int rate is basically the interest rate. So for these model, we have used various factors like revolution balance, which is the total balance which is revolved in the customer's account, the total account, which are the total number of account of the customer, employee length, which is the length of the or the time for which the customer is employed, and 17 other variables. So this model has used forward stepwise method to predict the target variable, and it has come up with 25 significant variables. As you can see, the value of parameter estimates were quite high, which means that the significant variables have major impact on the dependent target variable. Also, in the below screenshot, you can see the adjusted R squared value for this model, the multiple R squared value, and the p value. So as you can see, the R square value is 0.50. That means our model is able to explain 50% of the variability, which is comparatively good compared to other models. Now moving on to coefficient estimates for this model, as you can see, there are 25 significant variables which this model has come up with. So basically I'll interpret few of the variables because it's not possible to interpret all of the variables because it will take time. So for example, if the value of the variable purpose is home improvement, then the interest rate will be 0.7539% higher than the interest rate for which the purpose value is a car loan. That is, the person who are buying the car will have 0.7539% lower interest rate than the person who are taking the loan for home improvement. Also, if you see, if revolve util increases by 1 unit, the interest rate will increase by 8.63%. And if house ownership type is mortgage, then the interest rate will be 1.04% lower than no house. which is no house is again a value for percent for the variable purpose. Now, so in our analysis, we had two target variables. One is interest rate, and it is a continuous target variable. So for this variable, we had used two models. One is linear regression, and the other one is decision tree. So decision tree was chosen as the final model for this target variable because the R-square value was pretty high. For decision tree, the R-square value was 53%, and for linear regression, the R-square value was 50%. Also, the decision tree was explaining some of the key factors which were important for our analysis, which are revolution balance and customer inquiries. For another target variable which was charged off, and the charge off is basically a binary target variable, and for this variable we had used two models. One is logistic regression and the other one is binary classification tree. And from these two models we have chosen logistic regression because the misclassification rate was 14%, which was lower than the misclassification rate for the binary classification tree. So the accuracy for the logistic regression was much more. It was 86% than the accuracy for the binary classification tree, and which is 82%. The customer charge off probability was predicted, and this is how we have predicted the charge off probability for the customer, and the customer were segmented as risky and non-risky customers. So I mean, if the charge of variable has value 1, then they were segmented as risky customers, and if they have the value 0, they were categorized as non-risky customer. Moving on to the conclusion part, this is how the lending club were able to identify the risky and non-risky customers, which has given them the advantage to make informed and advanced decision to avoid all the potential risk and losses which they could face by lending the loan to all the risky customers. Also, valuable information can be provided to the customers about what all factors were what all are the key factors which affects their loan APR. And the customers can also get to know about the approximate value of the loan APR for which they are going to apply before applying for any loan. So this is how these models have benefited to lending club and even to their customers. And again, this is how we have achieved our primary goal and other benefits. This is the end of the presentation, and I would like to thank Professor Dr. Hammer to guide us along this project. Thanks everyone for listening to me.